What's going on, folks? Welcome to the bar. Today we're going to be talking about Kaiju number 8, chapter 10. There will be spoilers for this video, so if you haven't read the chapter, be sure to read it and head on back, because today is the day we find out if Kafka passed the officer exam and enters the defense force. Also, we're in week 2 of the fan art quirk contest. Be sure to get your submissions in by September 30th to ExclaimsMedia@gmail.com, and the top 3 winners will receive either a copy of NBA 2K21 Ghost of Tsushima or the Avengers game. You guys let me know also that NBA 2K was a trash video game, so that one might be pending. Either way, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, and let's step inside and grab a drink. Okay, so chapter 10 starts off with Reno narrating about his time in the hospital with Kafka. He mentions that Kafka really beat the odds and has become more determined and confident since getting back out there. The thing is, we all know how Kafka is, so Reno quickly has to walk back his words. Sidebar here before we really get started, I like how they started this chapter. It switched point of views for a millisecond, showing Reno's perspective of last week's scene. As of last week's chapter, it's mostly from the point of view of Kafka, and in this one, Kafka takes a backseat to a few others. While Reno and Kafka are bantering about Reno igniting Kafka's will to succeed, their letters show up. They sit down, they stare at each other, and on the count of 3, they open them. Then the chapter decides to use that opportunity to go straight to the graduation ceremony. There we see Kikoro receiving the honors of being the star of the exam and becoming the representative of the 27 people chosen for the final selection. In her head, she's quick to discredit the praise that she's receiving. She knows the praise that she's receiving, it's Kafka's, but she's got to keep Kafka's secret. That's when it pans to the next scene. Kafka's not lined up with Reno. Kafka failed. She states that this inconvenience isn't going to stop her from knowing the truth about Kafka, and the fact that he saved her and was concerned for her well-being has her on Team Kafka off the jump. But that's when a click of the door rings out, interrupting the entire ceremony. And who do you think it is? Well, in a similar-looking uniform scurrying into the room is Kafka. As the shock generates murmurs that echo throughout the room, it moves to a flashback where we see a group of officers and scientists discussing Kafka failing. Hoshino, the dude that I suspected of being up to no good, he states that his admittance is an open and shut failure. This guy can't use the suit, therefore he's pretty much useless in the defense force, to which even Mina agrees. It's fucked, but if somebody can't draw out any of the power, what's the point? You're just a liability at that point. Unless you can really bring something to the table, you're out. Hoshino then states that if nobody has any objections, he would like to state his objection as to why they should keep Kafka around. He states that Kafka showed excellent battle awareness despite subpar grades, but his true strength was that he provided great comic relief. I guess I know how that feels. Look, it's a mutual understanding that someone like Kafka will probably never become an officer, but Hoshino has no problem bringing him into his specific squad as a cadet. With that being said, we move back to present time, and we're back at the graduation ceremony. Kafka has been told that he had to sit out because he isn't becoming an officer, but he's allowed to come in for the last little bits. I have a feeling that if this manga goes on far enough, the moment when Kafka becomes an officer is going to be a pretty big moment. I hope they don't brush that aside. From here, Mina gives a super militaristic speech asking everybody to give her their lives. Pretty morbid, and honestly it kind of shows me that life in the military has changed her from the flashbacks, but also it lets me know that this world is extremely complicated. She talks about how the kaiju attacks are getting severely worse and that some of the people standing next to you probably will die. But she's going to be standing there alongside every single one of them as the spear and the shield towards these threats. Kafka being the guy that he is, sees his friend taking on more of the burden once again. So what's Kafka do? He shouts out to everyone's surprise that one day he'll be standing at her side taking some of that burden off of her shoulders. Now, he made a mistake. He addressed an officer by her first name and it sets off the room and people are cracking up, and it's broken by Mina, who herself almost fucks up and calls Kafka by his first name, but she catches herself and quickly deals out a punishment to Kafka. Hoshino, in typical fashion, is losing his shit due to Kafka's shenanigans, stating that he thought that she would have given him a little bit more of a severe punishment when he cuts himself off. As Mina walks away, it appears that she has a smile on, something that he's never seen her do. Alright, Kafka, melting the Ice Queen's heart. I see you, dude. Hoshino turns around, and the subordinate who first pointed out Kafka's kaiju fortitude level quips that his new comedy act is already working wonders. Hoshino states that it's gonna be good to have Kafka around because everyone around here is so damn bleak. And then, in typical Kaiju number 8 fashion, I told you all, he has an ulterior motive. It turns out the vice captain thinks that there's more to Kafka than meets the eye. You see, he's not really fooled about that whole exam debacle. To be specific, Kafka's vitals disappeared when the fortitude level erupted. So, he's putting 2 and 2 together. In the last chapter, he was already trying to piece together what happened, so it's only a matter of time before he finds out. It's gonna be interesting to see what comes from it. Kafka is good at hiding his other self, but he's really bad at hiding it in the sense of like a paper trail. Also, at the same time, he'll reveal himself to save somebody in trouble. So in a way, if this vice captain is crazy enough, there's a possibility he could endanger, Kafka or sick a kaiju on him and see what happens. Additionally, I'm interested to see where the future of the story has in store. Will Kafka go back to work and eventually encounter the humanoid kaiju? Could it sense Kafka in the room? I don't know. But that monster's with the disposal team, and it would be sad if Kafka's friends got murdered on the day that he stops working there. On the flip side, it would be absolutely badass if Kafka shows up with Reno to save his friends. This all depends though if Reno is going to end up in the same squad. I mean, he graduated, so for all we know, he'll be on an actual squad. I mean, I would hate to have Kafka and Reno separated. We have seen them come so far together, and I really hope they end up in the same squad. Speaking of Reno, I'm happy that we can see him being happy for Kafka. This is a huge moment for him as well, but that smirk of acknowledgement is cool. He knows Kafka worked his ass off to get to this point, and he knows that Kafka helped him get to this point. Also, a quick holler back to the previous chapter review. I told everyone that you could not trust Hoshino. I told you, and it was true. I was saying it, he looks suspicious, but guess what? Heyo. Granted, we don't know his real motives. He could be a pretty cool dude. I think it's kind of messed up keeping someone around just for the comic relief, but also at the same time, I guess he needs a reason to keep Kafka around. I don't know. I mean, I guess he can also play to the fact that the captain knows Kafka. If he knew more than he was letting on during the selection, he knew that Mina was already compromised, so pulling in Kafka was going to be relatively easy. But, I don't want to say he's up to no good too quickly. They did show him as a shifty character, and there's obviously going to be some enemies within the defense force, and some enemies that are kaiju. I'm gonna be waiting though for the moment that Kikoru's dad gets involved. If that guy finds out about Kafka, either one of two things are gonna happen. We're gonna have Kafka strapped to a gurney on an operating table being dissected, or he'll be turned into a war machine to murder kaiju. I mean, the theory that I've kind of had going on in my head is what if a parasite type situation is occurring with the kaiju? In Parasite, if one of the parasites got inside you, it would take over your brain and you become a monster. What if it's the same type of deal except there might be, good kaiju? Think of it kind of like Devilman and how Devilman is an entity of evil but possesses a good person to do good things. Even if it is kind of killing them. They turn into devils. But they take on the appearance of something terrifying and demonic but turn out to be a force for good is what I'm saying. It would be cool if you find out that there's factions of kaiju and somehow Kafka's kaiju is like a legendary one amongst them all. As for the next chapter, we'll probably see Kafka settle into his military life and hopefully we'll get more of this disposalman kaiju. And let's hope that Kafka keeps his secret a secret and doesn't accidentally reveal to anyone that he's a kaiju. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if sometime next chapter he has to explain himself to Kikoru. If I were her, after the ceremony, I'd be grabbing him and being like, yo dude, I was bleeding to death, did you turn into a fucking kaiju? So yeah, we'll see next week what happens. There is a break after next week's chapter though, and I hope you're enjoying my Kaiju number 8 videos. I plan on staying up to date, so if you want to talk some Kaiju number 8, be sure to throw a comment down below. And if you want more chapter reviews, hit the like button. Oh, and I guess while I'm telling you to do a bunch of shit, be sure to follow me on Twitter too. Why not, right? Other than that, this is Dan, signing off. Cheers.